Today, Thomas, we're going to decode the tweets of August 15th, 2018. And to get started, the first tweet is about the red wave, the election results last night. So far, Trump says he has the team he wants 8 out of 9 in special elections. And if you go to the link inside the description box, you're going to see the tweets where he lists all the winners. And we're not going to go through each one of them, but I will call them out. We've got Chris Kobach in Kansas, Bob Stefanowski in Connecticut, Pete Stauber in Minnesota, Brian Steele in Wisconsin, Jeff Johnson, Minnesota, Scott Walker, Wisconsin, Leah Vukmir, Wisconsin.
The power of tweets. The entire mainstream media is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to promote the bad candidates. Trump tweets and he wins. We are talking about the red tsunami, and it's coming. And it's not only just the last 7 out of 7 or 8 out of 8. If you go back to all of them, there were 8 before that. So literally the only one that he actually supported that didn't win, that I know of, was Roy Moore. And that was a mess. So really, I would say he has 100% once you got Bannon out of the picture. 100%, that's more powerful than the entire mainstream media's message. Propaganda, avid ISIS management propaganda. The efforts of George Soros and the Atlantic Council through Facebook, the rigged algorithms from Eric Schmidt. And those are private corporations. So what's going to happen, folks, is they want to get Trump off of Twitter because it is the most powerful thing that has ever happened in American communication history.
And before you go, because we're going to talk about this at length, these are desperate times, because if we win big at the midterms, this whole ship can be sailed a different direction, and that's what their big concern is.
They know that if right now they do not win the war against Trump, calling them, the mainstream media and 300 plus newspapers all colluding against Trump to write bad articles not based upon anything except being told to write bad articles. So what they're doing is their last-ditch attempt is going to break their back. It's just like the Democrats. Their last-ditch attempts are having no effect on Trump, except that they're losing more than ever. So really, what is going on is a battle to the death, and the death will be the midterms elections. And if they can use Leader Plus to control that night, the elections, and they can manipulate these op-tech-driven, software-driven election machines, which you have now posted showing that an 11-year-old, as we have said, any junior high school student can, in fact, go in and change votes on any machine, election machine, digital election machine in America.
It's absolutely disgusting. We need to go to paper ballots and human counting. And like I always say, there's some things that only human beings should be doing, and that's making human babies and counting citizen votes. We need to get all the machinery out of it, because that's where the tomfoolery happens.
And at DEF CON recently, they basically hacked every single machine, the ones that we had pointed out, whether it be ES&S, whether it be Sequoia, whether it be Diebold, whether it be Interheart Civic, or any of them. They're all hackable with PC Anywhere. Anyone can hack our election machines. We need to simply notice that now and realize that that is part of why the mainstream media has to silence all alternative news at this moment. If you even say certain people's names, you will be taken off. If you even insinuate something that they don't like, you can be taken off. No warnings, just taken off. What is that? That's corporate control. But remember, those corporations are paid U.S. tax dollars in contracts with the government. We can simply end the contracts and crash those artificially inflated companies. The FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and
Apple,
and Google and Apple. What is really going on there? It's all fake. It's propped up stock market. What happens with Facebook? They have one horrible thing after the next happen, and their stock barely goes down. So what is really going to happen? Those basically dummy monopoly tech lord companies are all going to have to collapse, because if they want to be a corporation, fine. If they want to be a monopoly, it's not fine. If they want to control public opinion on their monopoly, which is also paid for by U.S. taxpayers, that's against the law.
Well, the problem with Twitter for the cabal, for the globalist, is that Trump has a direct voice to the people, and we're listening, paying attention, and acting accordingly. So they are going to have to shut Twitter down to keep him silenced.
Absolutely. That is the intent, which we've pointed out before.
Well, show me how, in detail, how you imagine that would work.
The good or the bad side of it, the way that it's going to work and the way that it is working.
Now, let's talk about how, because we talked earlier about this, that first thing is you're going to see these Silicon Valley boy kings pulling out all their money. Now, people are pulling their money out of these stocks, right?
Correct.
We saw Zuckerberg selling and selling and selling Facebook stock before all of this started exploding on the scene. So I would imagine, I haven't checked, that that's occurring with the other social medias.
On a massive scale, and you see everyone coming out of, like the guy who was the head of PayPal, one of the heads of PayPal,
Peter Thiel,
went over to start another tech company. Why? They're pulling their money out of the companies that they know are going to crash because they were illegally founded and their base code is stolen. Well, that can be proven. And when it is proven, and that's going to happen because behind the scenes, Trump will never actually have to do that technically. All he has to say is RICO, monopoly, antitrust. That's all he has to do is say that, and those companies will collapse.
But what's going to happen at the DOJ? Certainly with our traitor Jeff Sessions sitting there, that he's not going to get a lot of traction off of those words.
Well, you see, as you know, this special counsel is nothing more than a continuation of John Brennan and Peter Strzok's Crossfire Hurricane counterintelligence operation, which is illegal, by the way. You can't do a counterintelligence operation against an election in America. That's completely illegal. And it's treasonous, actually. But the point is that was what the special counsel was. It's a continuation of Peter Strzok, the star witness, who's now been fired, of course, from the FBI, but he's not fired from the CIA, because if he was fired from both, then the special counsel has to close, doesn't it? Because the star witness is totally, completely discredited, disgraced, and should be fired from both the CIA and the FBI. We can go into more of that because Strzok carried certain powers through the CIA and the FBI that very few people have as a section chief of the CIA, which he carried into the special counsel, which they still need as they continue this absolute baseless, illegal continuation of a coup d'etat, which is happening right before our eyes. So what we're seeing now is the battle. And when Trump says mainstream media is the enemy, he's not kidding. He needs to absolutely end their power by the midterm election. And as it is going right now, it looks pretty darn good that he's going to do so.
Now, what we can do out here as patriots, get up and vote for the team that he wants. You follow those tweets every day. Look at Trump tweets before you look at any other news, and do as instructed. These are times of war. This is an information war. We've selected Trump to be our leader through this war, and now we need to give him our support. There is a text up here about Peter Strzok. Would you like me to read that one while you've got Strzok on your mind?
Sure.
The action, the Strzok firing, was a decisive step in the right direction in correcting the wrongs committed by what has been described as Comey's skinny inner circle. And this is a quote he retweeted or picked up from Chris Swecker, former FBI assistant director.
As we have pointed out, previous people in the FBI, in the DOJ, plus whistleblowers are coming out now. And so this is just another statement of one of those. And what they're saying is there was a very small group of people. As we say, if you fire 36 people, actually put them in Guantanamo Bay until you can indict them because of their treasonous activities, you would actually collapse the entire cabal. And the SES, the senior executive service members, would simply have no one telling them what to do. So when he says there's a skinny inner circle, he's referring to what we called Comey's bunk buddies. We pointed out from the beginning that Comey literally was talking about his illegal activities of going back and telling his little group everything that was going on in his conversations with the president. Those are privileged conversations. So everything that was going on in the CIA, in the FBI, and in the DOJ was 100% corrupt, and this FBI assistant director is telling us about that, and that it's really not a large group of people. Notice how it all fell onto the one person we had pointed out it would fall on, the second person in charge of the FBI's counterintelligence division. It's coming down to Peter Strzok. I mean, we haven't even heard anything more about Andrew McCabe and his 5 investigations that went nowhere, and his one little tiny accusation of leak has then insinuated an indictment which is going nowhere. So what we're seeing is the small group of people is highly protected, and we just have to keep hammering on them until they go to jail.
So in this next group of tweets, we have Chuck Schumer. We have a video where he's saying that illegal immigration is wrong. This comes from several years ago. And then Trump tweets out this, which is a quote from Schumer in 2009. People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same way as people who enter the U.S. legally.
This showing the hypocrisy of Chuck Schumer, who was at that time leading a Democratic Congress and Senate particularly, and that he, in fact, was trying to do immigration reform, and Obama was in office. So it was a Democratic White House, it was a Democratic Congress and Senate, and he couldn't get anything passed. But while he was trying to get it passed, he says all the opposite now of what he said then. He clearly said we have to have a border. He clearly said we have no country without a border. He clearly said it is illegal, no matter what you call it, to call it undocumented. That is a ruse. Undocumented means illegal alien, means you need to go to jail, be locked up, and sent back. Not given a lawyer, not given representation, not given the ability to say that you want an asylum because you fear for something, which is now what the Democrats are trying to do. Anyone can get an asylum in America with the new Democratic bill that they put forward, which was, of course, failed. It failed on the House floor. Why? Because it said all you have to do to get asylum in America is say that you fear. I have a fear. A fear of what? It doesn't matter. You can now become an American citizen and literally go on the dole, which is what we see now. The reason that the food stamp program is now the least amount of money we've ever spent in modern history is because the aliens have gotten off of it because they're illegal aliens. 40 million illegal aliens, according to the FBI core report now.
And where can people get the core report? Because we've had a couple of inquiries about that number. It seems like such a high number.
We will have to find that for you. It was a quote in 2 different places that I saw from reputable sources that were quoting that number. And the FBI core report is a report done every year to basically state how many criminals that they're targeting. Well, all 40 million are targeted by the FBI. They actually have their names.
But that doesn't mean anything, because when you're talking about the FBI, again, you're talking about an agency that doesn't do its job very well.
Unfortunately, and those who keep saying that, there are many good FBI agents, good, then let them whistleblow on those who aren't good FBI agents, because right now we need them put in jail, or we don't even have any justice in this country whatsoever coming from the federal government.
The next tweet is about the rigged Russian witch hunt, which goes on and on as the originators and founders of the scam continue to be fired and demoted for their corrupt and illegal activity. All credibility is gone from this terrible hoax, and much more will be lost as it proceeds. No collusion.
Bruce Orr is one of the people he's referring to but doesn't mention here. Bruce Orr had 60 contacts with Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele was fired by the FBI, should have never been hired by the FBI, because he had such a big mouth that he took the lies from the dossier and gave them out wholesale to all kinds of news agencies, 6 of them who we've mentioned. Well, then if Christopher Steele basically lost all credibility, then why is Bruce Orr still in position? Because he was demoted. He is one of the 500 DOJ review board, the ultimate review board members for all SES members. In other words, he can't be fired. He's one of the big dogs. And so he was demoted. But I'm telling you, the 60 contacts with Christopher Steele, each and every one of them was an illegal act. And that doesn't count the hundreds of times that he was the go-between between his wife Nellie Orr and Fusion GPS, Cody Shearer in the Democratic National Committee, the other people, Hillary, John Podesta, Victoria Nuland. He was the coordinator of the whole thing, you see, because he was the one who had the ability to, through his job, talk with foreign agents. Christopher Steele is a foreign agent. Stephen Halper, foreign agent. Joseph Mifsud, foreign agent. Alexander Downer, foreign agents. They may be part of the Five Eyes. It doesn't matter. In this case, they were treasonous enemies of the state, foreign agents who were trying to meddle in our election. And he was the go-between between the whole set of them. So why is he still in office? Why has he still got a job? Because he's an SES member and he's in the ultimate top review board, which means he can't be fired by anybody. He reviews his own salary, his own position, and the amounts of bonuses he gives to himself.
I bet he's going to give himself a bonus for all this great activity he's been up to for the last year.
Well, SES members don't do any work, so now that he had to do some work, yes, he'll probably charge more.
And they also don't have to be qualified for the jobs that they're doing.
And the head of the witch hunt, the head inquisitor, Peter Strzok, fired from the FBI as a dog and pony show, as nothing more than complete propaganda, because he also works for the CIA. He's a CIA section chief. Not only is he an assistant deputy, he's a deputy agent for the FBI counterintelligence division underneath William Priestap. He is also a section chief for the CIA. So everything he was doing, even though in 1996, yes, they did pass a law saying this position can exist, it doesn't matter. The CIA is not legally, lawfully allowed to conduct counterintelligence investigations in America on Americans. But they have to have Peter Strzok in that position throughout the rest of Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation because he is the star witness. If he gets fired, then the entire thing has to be thrown out. He was fired from the FBI, but then so he was also Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Bruce Orr and others were demoted or moved around, but in essence, nothing has really been done about their criminality. And so what is going to be done about it? Probably nothing. He will remain, because he's an SES member, Peter Strzok, he will remain a CIA section chief or a CIA member. His pay probably wasn't even affected. And because of all this extra work he's having to do, he probably is going to get some type of award from Bruce Orr and the review committee that will probably give him a $35,000 bonus for this year because of all the efforts. Plus, no, don't forget, the GoFundMe accounts for Andrew McCabe and for Peter Strzok practically had twice the amount of money they needed, that they claimed they needed for their legal counsel, in just a few days, by thousands of people donating. If you believe that, then you are naive.
No, it's probably some kind of money laundering going on. I mean, their big donors are dumping money in there in their GoFundMe accounts.
Without a doubt. And again, it's just a political statement for the mainstream media to be able to say, oh, look, people support Peter Strzok. Yeah. Really? Really? Someone listened to his testimony and supported that madman? Supported that angry person? Supported that... Oh, we don't want to get into calling him names, but just look at what he gave as a testimony. He basically said he acted with impunity, he cannot be prosecuted, and he has some type of immunity that still to this very day keeps him from being fired from the CIA.
Next tweet is a big happy birthday wish to Maxine Waters.
Which is just beautiful because she asked for Trump to be impeached for her birthday, but in fact Trump got 7 out of 7, 100%, batting 1,000. Sorry, Maxine Waters, as he calls her, the leader of the Democratic Party, because she is. Nancy Pelosi, she can't get out of her mouth the word impeachment without spitting her teeth out of her head. And plus, she wouldn't know what president she was talking about that she wanted impeached because she doesn't seem to know who the president is. She has made no comments that demonstrate that she's in reality for the last, year and a half or so. So, who's the leader of that party? Maxine Waters, demanding impeachment. Al Green demanding impeachment, Gregory Meeks demanding impeachment, all of whom are criminals who by their own actions we have had to pay taxpayer dollars to cover for their criminal activities, and they get away with it scot-free.
Now, speaking of these delightful politicians that California is bringing us, let's put the focus on Dianne Feinstein right now, because as our research is showing, her husband, Richard Bloom, owns 10% of Avid, which gives him controlling interest over Avid, which really gives Dianne Feinstein control over what you are seeing on your news. And we began to think, well, now, who is behind Dianne Feinstein? Who would be manipulating that behind the scenes? And we can't help but look at this Chinese connection she has. And I know this is a big leap and there's a lot of research we have to do, but we can't help but wonder, are the Chinese behind all of this kind of news propaganda we're seeing with this Avid software?
Well, certainly the people who believe that China is the now dominant force in the world and have gone over there, like Eric Schmidt and like James Breyer and many others who ripped off Leader Technologies IP and their software. And,
which is different from the name Avid Leader.
Yeah, Leaders Plus.
Right.
Which is how they control the election night results.
Right.
Which is still part of Avid, which is another section. Part of Avid is called ISIS Management, another part called Leader Plus. And that's quite different than Michael McKibben's Leader Technologies, which is where they stole the technology. But now what is happening? Eric Schmidt, right now we see, has created a complete digital totalitarian dictatorship in China for President Xi. They now are arresting people because of looks on their face. They now have a visual recognition that when you're out in public, you're having pictures taken of your face. And by the expression on your face, they literally show, I've seen the films of this, where the police come up and question you and take your phone to see why it is that you look like you have criminality written on your face, that you're about to do something that is not supported by the dictatorship of the totalitarian Chinese government.
Thought crime is what this is.
It's thought crime. Before you even do it, they come and they take your phone to see if you were talking about doing it. And if you were, of course, then you get put into re-education camp. Now, President Xi wants to say there's no re-education camps. Well, then why are there 1 million Muslims in re-education camp that were the first experiment done in the northern parts of I don't know how to pronounce it, UIHARG. It's a northern section of China. And what happened, there were many Muslims there. And so with this facial recognition, they started their program. And supposedly, we haven't seen confirmation of this, but we have heard repeated reports, that over 1 million Muslims have been rounded up and put into detention camps where they are being re-educated simply by the look on their face. Now, this sounds like it's an exaggeration, but we brought to you recently in the last few weeks the facts of what's going on in China. Totalitarian digital regime. Even if you are talking to somebody that has low ratings, social ratings, it brings your ratings low. And since everything is going digital there, including all of your bank accounts, everything, if you are talking to people they don't like, they take money from your bank. So you go out to do something and you find you have no credits in your bank.
So this is Eric Schmidt behind the scenes doing that. So then is it Eric Schmidt and his Chinese connection that's influencing the Dianne Feinstein connection to Avid?
Well, absolutely, but also other totalitarians like George Soros, like Lord Malloch Brown, like many members of the Privy Council, like Jeffrey Patty. We know their patterns, and we know that totalitarianism is what they want, and they believe, because they've already demonstrated it in China, in Turkey, in Iran, and many other places, they can control the digital media. And that's what is experimenting right here in America. We know George Soros gave $1.5 billion to the Atlantic Council to set up their Facebook scrubbing machine. That's the reason people are being scrubbed from Facebook. It's not even a human scrubbing them. It's a program that was written by the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Laboratory, and they're using it in Europe. Now they're using it on us. Eric Schmidt's Digital News Initiative is now controlling exactly what Avid is allowed to say. So even if Avid, the prompting machine for all mainstream media, and it's being produced, the content's being produced by ISIS management. Imagine that. Imagine the joke that they have in manipulating people throughout the world, but calling it ISIS management. Here in America, ISIS management controls the mainstream media. Where do they get their content? Where do they get that? That is simply taken from the globalists who did the same thing in Europe. So where is that coming from? Open Society Foundation, Tides Foundation, and a number of the other ones preach these doctrines. And they give infinite money. Now $18 billion of George Soros' money went into 184 organizations that do these things, including Brock's group, David Brock's group,
Media
Matters. I mean, they paid whores to say that they had relationships with Trump, and they were proud to state that they were publicizing that any whores that want to come get money can come get money from them, and that's where Stormy Daniels came from.
Well, that's probably where Doggerosa comes from, too.
Well, Doggerosa is that standard operating procedure. Someone who when you don't do your work, you're always paranoid, so you're concerned about getting other people caught doing bad things, and so you have recording devices with you. She brought a recording device into a skiff. She goes to jail. There's no question about that. Period. All of the security agreements all state the same thing. You cannot bring a recording device into a skiff, especially the White House situation.
Maybe she thinks that there's an exception for dogs.
No, and a cur is not a terrible slur when it's given from the mouth of Shakespeare. And that is really what she is. She's a cur. She's someone biting at his heels who he was kind to, over kind to. He oftentimes makes that mistake that he's kind and he gives people a chance. Why? Because he knows he can fire them later if they don't make it. And they know that he will fire them. She knew he would fire her the minute that she started fouling up. He just didn't know about it. And then Kelly had to fire her. Why? Because I guess she just caused nothing but confusion. And then now, what is she doing? She's doing a Keith Ellison. She's doing a Donna Brazil. She's doing a Jonathan Weiner. She's getting out in front of the narrative and lying up a storm. Now she says, oh yeah, she has proof that Russian collusion. Really? The entire Mueller investigation, which has been going on since July of 2016, hasn't found one speck, but she has evidence on that. She has evidence of him using the N-word, but she doesn't really have evidence. And then the stories just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Wait a minute.
Now, Obama, and I've seen many videos, used the N-word.
Yes, but he is an Indonesian, and he looks black, so he gets to use that word.
Oh, but he was Indonesian, and he used that word.
Correct. He's an Indonesian, and he used that word repeatedly. As a matter of fact, if you read his book, Memories of My Father, he says that many
delusions of his father.
Yeah, lies about the man who wasn't my father, it should be called, because he is not Kenyan. There was a baby born from
Let's not go there.
That,
we can't.
But that isn't who Barack Obama is. I mean, just take a look, folks. Take a look.
Well, so in this information war, we're counting on you folks that you've already been doing your homework so that we don't have to rehash things that will get our videos deleted. And that's what it means to stay in front of the narrative and why you want to listen to stations and conversations like the ones we're having so that you can stay ahead of where they're coming and shutting you down in your free speech.
The free speech may be on its last leg if Trump cannot win this by the November election. If he does not have the title Red Tsunami Wave coming with the election, they will, of course, attempt to impeach him, and they will use Omarosa the cur and her lies. They'll use anybody's lies that they can get a hold of. They use the lies of the PP dossier, which is... Folks, please, if you've never read it, it's a historic document. Read it. You will know from the first sentence that it is a fake.
But we do have something that we can do, and that is everybody going on Election Day and voting for the folks that Trump has tweeted out.
Because look at Chris Kobach. He won by 365 votes. Every single vote counts. And because we know they rigged the election, we are hoping that because we have revealed this to everyone and the writ of mandamus is being filed in a number of states and people have shown that it is rigged, and if there is a wrong tally, it will be questioned. So, Democrats, people who run OPTEC, Lord Malik Brown, Mitt Romney and his son.
Tag.
Please remember, if we see any numbers that are wrong, we're not letting the decision be made that night by Leader Plus. We're going to demand a recount of
by
the
hand.
And you know what that will mean? You know what that will mean, Democrats and globalists? There will be only paper ballots from then on. There will never be another digital machine because we will find out the truth of the lies. Now, let's note that Harvard itself just did a study called Just Facts. And they said, from what their research, which went on since the last election, that there were 5 to 8 million illegal votes cast in that presidential election.
And that's not even counting the digital chicanery that was going on.
Correct. So we can inform people of the digital chicanery, and we can show them how to stop that. We can actually show them how, if we wanted to, but they shouldn't, we could go in and make sure that every single vote was cast for Trump. We could make sure that every single vote in the country was cast for Trump because PC Anywhere can hack every single.
We just need a lot of great hackers to go in and do it. I mean, it's war. This is war.
All we need is a bunch of junior high school students.
Oh, that's right. Get the 11-year-olds out there. Hey, let's go to this last tweet. Our country was built on tariffs, and tariffs are now leading us to great new trade deals, as opposed to the horrible and unfair trade deals that I inherited as your president. Other countries should not be allowed to come in and steal the wealth of our great USA. No longer.
This country was founded upon tariffs. What he means by that is the British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company were basically ripping off America, as they are still to this day, like vampires. And so in, I believe it was 1786, Washington himself said, no, we're going to put tariffs on them because we need to get them out of here. We need to do our own manufacturing, create and use our own resources, and not let them be ripped off by foreign countries. So from the beginning, it was a tariff war, folks. It was a war about Britain putting taxes on America. It's absurd. They wanted to tax everything, and they wanted all colonists to allow their house to be used for barracking their own soldiers. There was the Stamp Act. There was the tax on tea. There was the tax on everything. And so we were supposed to have stopped that with the first American Revolution. But the moment that we started the U.S. Federal Reserve, we invited those same people, the Dutch, the Germans, and the Brits, right back in to take over control of the odious debt of fiat currency, which is established by the U.S. Federal Reserve, which we don't owe a single dime to them, by the way, because it's odious debt. It was created as a debt that could never be paid. So that means we don't owe it. Plus, we can freeze, the president can freeze the central banks. And if he freezes them, then he will freeze 1/3 of their assets, which are in the FANG stock. That means it won't crash. Their ultimate recourse is to crash the stock market based upon FANG collapsing. But because those corporations didn't collapse, because Hillary didn't get elected and they were supposed to collapse, they are now running on empty. And as corporations, they're doing everything they can to support the globalists, knowing that they were supposed to have collapsed. But they may not collapse, because if he freezes the assets in the central banks, then those companies won't collapse. He can take them over because of their fraud. He can then simply turn it into a public utility that no longer has surveillance. And I'm talking about Twitter, I'm talking about Instagram, Snapchat.
It's any kind of software that uses a login.
Exactly.
They took and stole the patent from Leader Technologies that was given out freely to everybody by James P. Chandler III and IBM Eclipse Foundation. Now, those are names that you should pay attention to.
When PayPal, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Google, Facebook get the bill that they should be given by Leader Technologies, they will collapse. And that's okay, because then Leader Technology can take over their assets and simply reconstitute it either as a public utility or as a private corporation based upon the reality that they invented this technology. And all you have to do is go to Leader Technologies and you'll see all the aspects of these different branches of these Silicon Valley fake cardboard cutout tech kings are simply elements of what Leader Technologies had already created. So it's all there. Anybody who wants to look will see it. But the point is, these things are easy to solve. People think that it's horrible. Oh, no more free speech. No, the fact that they're at a war against free speech gives us the chance to definitively win this battle because we've pulled them out into the open. The problem is they don't know they're surrounded. And so mainstream media thinks that they speak and everyone believes. Now they speak and no one believes, and they're surrounded by the very people that they turned into their enemies, and they're calling them names. They're calling Trump believers 50%, which is probably more like 70% of Americans believe in Trump. And those are the people who take the time to do those surveys, the Rasputin, which is weekly. So what's really going on? Landslide support for Trump, no support from mainstream media, and they are dying. And by the midterm election, when the MAGA candidates win, that will be the end of mainstream media as we know. Because why? After that, he'll have the confidence to start taking some very severe actions. And those severe actions are going to literally be closing down CNN. To begin with, that's what will probably happen. Because of all their lies. They know they're promoting lies. And that's illegal. And so the FCC will simply bring a RICO, racketeering charges against CNN, and the fact that everybody reads the same news. So if CNN reads that news, and we can demonstrate, because it's a fact, Avid produces the news for everybody else, ISIS management, same group, then we're going to ask them who writes those things. There's no bylines. There's no bylines for pictures. There's no bylines for stories. Who write them? And then when we figure out exactly who writes them, that's the conspiracy. That's the RICO. That's the racketeering. That's antitrust. That's monopoly. Once you take down one, CNN, once you take down one, Facebook, the other ones just like them will simply collapse.